in the house. No. Bass and Bonsai, we are finally back home, and we got a few things we picked up you guys didn't even know we were going to get, because I didn't even know I was going to get it. If you guys remember right, we've got into the swim bait world, right? With our cheap AliExpress $3.50, which I'm pretty sure these are definitely Megabass knockoffs. They do work. You kind of have to work them though. They don't just throw them out and swim them back kind of thing. You kind of twitch them, and they do work pretty good though. And I've gotten on a few different bites. One real good bite one day. But then, like, it seems like every time I really take time to mess with one, I can get, you know, bit and a fish on it. First time out with the mag draft, bam, caught a fish. So I haven't really thrown a ton, and this wasn't my first color choice. It was the only one they had at the time. And I think I would like the freestyles better. That's where you just rig a single hookup. Or I would, I'm debating about trying to rig that one up on top so I can drag it along the bottom more. So I don't know. Anyway, definitely maybe a bait that I need to work with more. But then if you guys remember right, hello Bruce, the dark sleeper. I think I've only caught a handful of fish on this, but I do not fish it that much, and I don't know. I thought that color was going to be awesome, but I think fish absolutely hate that color. And I think it's the combination of that color and that color. They don't like it. I don't know what it is about that bait. It looks to me like it should work good. And this, get out of there, Crawdad. You're not even invited to this show. This is a swim bait only. The cheap AliExpress ones. I don't know if I really like these either. And then these even cheaper AliExpress ones actually aren't cheaper, but that thing needs a bigger tail. And we've even got a bigger one, and he sucks too. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to not go full on swim bait. I'm not going to invest a ton of time, except for maybe, just maybe, I might start trying swim baiting in between that little midday time, and possibly some of these little glide baits or bigger glide baits in that early morning, late evening, you know, when topwater typically kicks in during the summertime. So I just happened to be, I didn't even go there for any kind of baits whatsoever. I went to check out on it, and you guys may have a Scheels around you. I didn't even realize we had one around here until I watched a YouTube commercial pop up in the middle of a YouTube video, right? And this kid on there talking about come to Scheels, and he mentioned that they had the P5. He seemed to make it sound like they had the full lineup of the Megabass P5 rods. And I was like, well, I'll go check out a few there and just, you know, look around. And I bought a rod, but shocker, wasn't a P5. But before I get to the rod, let's finish out the swim bait deal. I did not go to buy a swim bait. I didn't even go to buy a little bitty glide bait or anything. But I ran across that dude there. And that little dude, Bruce says he doesn't have one in North Carolina. Bass Pro's over an hour and a half away. Well, you're missing out. I got a Bass Pro, a Cabela's, a Roger Sporting Goods, and I guess for the last 8 years I've had a Scheels that I didn't even know about. It's kind of bougie, in a bougie part of the neighborhood. It's about half-hour away from me. We went there to get, we went with Vanessa and Olivia, and Vanessa had to get dipping dots, so she got dipping dots, and she called Scheels like one of her favorite places to go, because the Scheels out here, they've got a full-on Ferris wheel inside the store. Like, you can ride it. It's a big store. Got everything. I wouldn't say they have more baits than a lot of other places, but they do have a lot of good stuff. But anyway, this guy, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, dude, that's a perfect little, kind of a miniature version of what could be a good bait. I have no idea what it's going to work like, but that bone type color just looked good, and I'm like, that bait, if I can figure out exactly, you know, which way the fish around here like it, which way I'm supposed to work it, it looks and feels like it's going to be definitely sink as soon as it hits the water and be a fast sinking type thing. You throw it out and just start, I think you come back pretty fast. Why they call it a speed glide. You kind of just, you know, let's read. We'll finally start reading some of these boxes and what they say. Yeah, so you can tell there's a ton of weight in the bottom there, and you can feel it, 7/8 of an ounce. You know, pretty small little bait. So long bomb cast, hits the water, start, you know, kind of a smaller bait but covering water to get hit. So not like your true swim bait. You know, this Megabass knockoff is what I consider a small swim in the swim bait world, but makes it look like a tiny bait, really. It's definitely bigger than it is. But as far as this is definitely one of those that's going to have a more wavy. It can catch a lot of fish, I think, if it's utilized right. But then, a bait that I actually was going to order, I bought one of these several years back. I didn't really give it a fair shot, but I gave it away back Brew Tank when I actually did do a few giveaways. I had a pretty big swim bait giveaway, and I had I'm going to probably pick up another one. Oh shoot, the jackal bait. Gantarelle. I may pick up one of those in one size or maybe both, but I bought this dude. That's Waver 168 in that trout color, right? Because all the bass around here eat trout. Sure they do. Light trout. But it's kind of a bony, speckled bony color. So I picked up that dude. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, you don't own a swim bait rod, Charlie? Yeah, sure I do. It's called Teton 661. It can actually throw this bait. I don't care what anybody says. Should I throw it? Probably not. Can I throw it? Probably. I can throw the full size. Oh, look at that. I can throw the full size Whopper plopper. This feels a little heavier, but I plan on throwing this on my Super Destroyer just to throw it, get out and throw it. But I'm thinking, I don't know if I want to mess with the full swim bait rod or not. I'm up in the air. I can't decide. One of the rods that's sticking out, and we're going to talk about rods here in a minute and what I found at Scheels and what I looked at and all that. But one of the rods that sticks out that I'm thinking about, you guys see that this thing's got a little more kick to the side. So yeah. So that should make for a, even if it's small and it's got more of a turn, more of a curve, so it'll make tighter. It's not going to go, you know, as this is more of a kind of slow and whatever. This is a faster ding, 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 bring it on back kind of thing. So right, 1-2 punch. We're going to catch some fish on them. We're going to be swim bait kings around here, catching our little dinks on little swim baits. But do we want to go full on? Do we want to go 45, 29, $75, 6 cents? They did have several different types of swim baits, from the Guggen baits to the the Ketchco, the Mike Buka, some different size of those, and one of those baits is a real big looking one. It was only like 20 some dollars, but I just don't know how. I don't know if I'm going to go full swim bait, right, or just want to go light and casual swim baiting. Because either way I decide, whatever size swim baits I decide to throw, I'm not going to go full spend the whole day throwing swim baits. I'm just not going to do it. It's not in my bones. You guys know me. It's hard for me to even throw, like, I don't even throw chatterbaits all day. I throw them for a little bit, and if they ain't hitting, I'm switching to something else that's going to catch me some bass. And so you can almost get any bait if you keep going out there and throwing it long enough to get hit. And so before we go to the rods and what I got and what we're going to talk about, Bruce says they have a Mag Draft 8-inch mold from Bug Mold in Ukraine. Which one are you? Wait a minute. Coleus, what are you talking about? That guy's slow sink and swims great. It's very versatile. You're talking about this one, right? The S-Ray waiver is known to be very good, and I guess I should have compared it to our... Oh, this that work. So it is definitely a bigger bait than the Megabass. It's the biggest, heaviest one I have so far of the hard ones. It is probably, I guess they consider that, is that a 6-inch? Yeah, it's pretty much the same size as the Mag Draft. 6-inch. But like you guys have seen, and it doesn't take a very big fish to eat even a bait like this. 2 to 3 pound bass will gobble something that big up like it's nothing. A little dink that is about that big will eat a lot of these smaller ones like no problem. So yeah, we're gonna get that dude out there, and I'm running out of tackle space, period. But the yeah, and see, I'm trying to stick with just a certain amount of combos, but I don't know. I can't say that the swim bait bug has me, but I've noticed, like, I had them before. You know, I had, well, I've had these now for a year or so, and I just throw them occasionally. I don't, like, get all into it. I've had various, you know, and I wouldn't say I've ever, like, just went down that rabbit hole and dove into swim baiting, kind of like I did with BFS, kind of like actually I did last year with, well, I've always thrown chatterbaits, but a few years back, I basically put myself to the challenge of showing how the Z-Man Original, and still to this day, I will still tell you, the Z-Man Original chatterbait, it's as good as any of them out there, the Jackhammer and any others. Jackhammer, in my opinion, it may be a better built chatterbait. It cannot catch any more fish than a Z-Man Original can. They're basically the same thing. The old tried and true original, the only thing is the hook lets you be able to go on a little lighter rod. And then since then we've gone to the AliExpress ones, and then now with this Mini Max, which has an incredible hook in it, or just some of they've changed, they made the minis better. So anyway, we went down that whole chatterbait rabbit hole, and you know, it just kind of showed me that not only size but color can be a huge difference when it comes to going out and throwing a chatterbait. It's kind of why I just got the big blade I showed you guys. We're going to try that little thing. And so I'm jumped back on the spinnerbait deal, because years ago I just threw spinnerbaits. I didn't even really care. I just bought half-ounce spinnerbaits and I threw them. And actually, I guess you could say, just due to the fact there wasn't as much fishing pressure, they just caught fish. And they still will today, but I feel like you can go out there and maybe it's just I'm more advanced or I'm paying more attention, and you can just see when, you know, certain baits are hitting better than others. And that's what Jay had asked me about this video. If you guys didn't watch, the last one just dropped tonight. And then I do have footage from like another 15 or so fish maybe that we caught after I did the outro, but it's kind of the same thing. We were catching them on spinnerbaits and chatterbaits. But Jay had asked me, could I tell which, or whatever, you know, which baits were hitting the best? Because that was a honey hole. That didn't take much of an expert fisherman to go out there and catch fish, right? I mean, anybody could have went out there and caught bass, but I feel that we got on a few baits, and it also showed me that if you fish a certain way, certain baits just are not meant for you. If you find it hard to throw a bait out and reel back fast, there's going to be certain baits just not for you. If you find it hard to throw something out and let it set and wiggle, and then reel a little bit, wiggle, if that just, you can't like force yourself to keep doing that, it's not fun, you're not going to do it for long, there's certain baits not for you. And I've just found over these last few years of paying attention that there's baits that I love and that suit me perfectly fine, that they're just not for other people. Now, when there's a real good bite on with that bait, other people can jump in there and use them no problem. Same thing, there's baits that I just cannot, for the life of me, get the hang of, first of all, liking him well enough to keep throwing him, even when the bite does get tough or when the bite's on, that I'm like, I'd rather find a different thing. Because they're, now, don't get me wrong, when I can see that there's a big bite going on that bait, I'll set and keep throwing it. But I like throwing jerk baits. But when I just can tell that it's this little Dinksville, like you guys have seen in the videos over the last few weeks, I get frustrated. Like, I'm tired of throwing and almost hooking myself, trying to unhook all these little dinks repeatedly. Like, let's look for a bigger bite. Let's find a bait, you know, because you can go out there and you can almost force feed fish. Like, if you throw the same bait over and over, you're going to find some fish out there, they're going to hit that bait. If you end up in a honey hole, you're going to catch fish. And you may go to a place and you leave and you caught 20 bass and you're like, man, they were tearing that thing up. But were they really? Were you at a spot where maybe you could have caught 60 fish if you would have changed maybe the color, the size, maybe a whole different bait? So I find myself always trying something else. Unless I'm on a big bass bite, I'm switching up stuff. Well, let's just give this a shot. Let's try this. And it's not, you know, I have no tournament mindset. I don't plan on being in any tournaments. I like doing it for myself. The thought of going out and catching a nice bunch of fish and then considering yourself not a loser, but like you lose because somebody caught 10, you know, a weight that was 10 more ounces than you, and you're like, man, I had this awesome, because you had an awesome day of fishing. But so anyway, I just don't have that tournament mindset in my head, but I have that, I guess, battle going on with myself of what, you know, I kind of was for a while, and I've kind of switched, I guess, if you guys maybe even noticed before I did, over last year or so. It's not necessarily catch the biggest bass on the smallest, you know, rod and reel combo possible mainly. I've kind of switched to let's work on the most and the biggest bass bite out there, regardless of what we have to resort to, whether it's regular gear, BFS gear, and possibly now into swim baits at certain times of the day. Because I feel if you go out and throw this bait all day long, for me, I'm not going to have fun. That's why I don't even, some of you guys probably go like spoonbill, snagging, stuff like that. My family's always tried to get me to go down there every year. From my son to Matt to Charles does it. The thought of going down and casting something out and trying to snag, I don't care how big it is, 50 pound, 100 pound, whatever fish, and you might get one that day, or you might not, or you might get one the next day, or you might get two. But spending the whole day doing that, I'd rather go bass fishing. Even if it's 20 dinks, 10 dinks. I just, you know, that's what I'd rather do. But if I can go out and I'm catching some and I'm figuring out, so what my plan to do, and I'll probably completely suck at it, is try to figure out, because that's one thing that I've found that none of these swim bait guys can tell you, is when and where to use this over a small little bait or a jig or a spinner bait. Like, there's got to be a place, a time, a sense of when do I pull this out. Now, I've gotten lucky, like the last few times, like, I don't know if you guys remember right, I don't know, I get in that, like, where I feel there's a good bite going. Sometimes I'll pull out and I think it's just you need to realize, like, are the fish looking up and hitting? Then you'd want to use like a glide bait. Are they still related to the bottom where your Texas rigs, your jigs and stuff like that are working? That's when you'd want to go to some kind of soft swim bait. But how do you know what they're really doing if you're just out there only throwing this and it's not getting hit? And then you switch to that, but then you're back and forth and maybe you miss the time or the place. So I feel like you just utilizing these in with your other stuff that you're throwing, whether it be a spinnerbait, chatterbait, a jig, a worm, shaky head, and you figure out, you know, from the morning or whenever you start, figure out what they're hitting on, and then try to utilize a bigger bait, whether it be a swim bait, a bigger swim jig with a swim bait on the back, or even a bigger spinner bait with a bigger, you know, because I've got some of these 3/4 ounce ones. At some point, maybe I'll just start, you know, trying to figure out what times, you know, the size of spinner baits and gradually try to work up or down or that kind of stuff. So anyway, to answer Jay's question, for me, and maybe you guys answer your own question, you can go out there with a bait and throw it like what we were doing at that honey hole place, that there's literally 5 videos worth of footage of all the bass we were catching. But we would throw bait and either do 2 things. It would either catch a fish right off the bat, and then you would go, it seemed like forever without another hit, or you would throw one that it seemed like you couldn't throw it or retrieve it wrong and it would just get hit. And then there was a few baits, like if you they were getting hit, but it was almost like you had to force the bite kind of thing. And what it came down to for me, and what was funny is because Charles, it was kind of different baits. Charles was at one point was doing pretty good with the spinner bait, but then it felt like that, and I don't know if it was just his color was off, but I was tearing him up on this bluegill colored bait. Like, I couldn't hardly throw this thing wrong. That bluegill colored spinnerbait was tearing up those bass. I tried a few different other colors. Now that was before I even had, I don't even think I had these yet. And chatterbaits also. The black and blue gold blade was like, it was like you could accidentally throw it out there and catch fish. The bluegill colored bait was the same way. Bluegill colored little mini max with the gold blade was game on. Now what's funny is, and let me move this out of the way for a minute. A few baits that got hit, but it felt like I was trying to force to catch the fish to get a bite on, was this one. Now I had a purple zinkers on it, purple haze zinkers, and that could have been the difference. I should have maybe put one of these on to try that, but I felt like this one, and the main difference in the color, I mean, that's a little bit brighter of a head than what the actual Mini Max is, just a little touch of orange instead of that bright. But these weren't that far off, and this guy was like lights out, bang, bam, bam, bam. They weren't really that much difference in size, but I think it was kind of the gold blade, because the gold bladed baits were just, for me, that day, were on it. This one got hit. I think I managed one on the peanut butter and jelly with the gold blade, and I think the gold blade's probably what got hit, but I think that color was just off. They didn't want that peanut butter and jelly. I threw the orange and green chatterbait. I think I managed one, and I tried, like I was trying to force feed him that one. That one didn't seem like it was on. And almost every other bait I tried, I tried slowing down. When I'd slow down, it's like if I slowed down long enough and threw that bait long enough, I get him hit. But like, man, I could just speed up and throw one of these other baits I know they're hitting. They were like game on again. So they were on a faster paced bite. I think they were ambushing. They were jumping in and out of that grass. And if you just took your time trying to slow down, they just either weren't enthused to go that far, couldn't see it or hear it as far, but it was pretty clear water. But when you came buzzing by with like a chattering gold flashing and this, bluegill color, or black and blue, maybe just because they couldn't quite make out what it was, but that gold was flashing, because that day there was a storm coming, and if you guys watch those videos, you could tell it would get lighter and then it would get darker. So you had like shade coming, and I think that kind of a day just sets up perfect for the gold blade, probably over the other one. So, and I'm going to put together a video talking about these baits. There's some ups and downs to these coming from AliExpress. But Charles was on mainly, he was using, I think he was actually using you know, the Key Tech bigger ones, like I think I want to say the 4.3s or something on an underspin, and he was having pretty good luck with that. I threw one briefly for just a little bit, but the thing about an underspin, you lose like the feel. That's not giving as much feedback, so I felt like it's harder for me to keep it out of the grass. So I was losing the chance to get bites that way because it would get gunked. I'd have to pull it back in. So I just was like abandoned ship on that. And I just stuck with what was working, which was one of these two baits or my black and blue chatterbait. Was like, once I got that kind of dialed in, I was like, well, there's no need to really change too much from that. All right, this video's been forever. Bruce, the Whopper plopper is not for you. Bruce, you are not fishing it right. I'm telling you right now. The Whopper plopper is, it's game on around here, like no matter what. It may have ups and downs now because it's been out for a while. That first whole year, the Whopper plopper's out, maybe 2 years. Man, early morning, afternoon, just certain overcast days. If it looked like it was going to rain, Whopper plopper, tear them up. If it was raining, Whopper plopper, tear them up. Like, I quit throwing buzz baits for like, kind of like I did with chatterbait and the spinner baits. When chatterbait came out and was going, I didn't mess with any other, like, you know, from a spinner bait. Like, I did throw square bill some, but like, I almost abandoned ship on everything. And chatterbait was lights out for a long time. And it still is just a proven, it just always gets hit. But I'm telling you guys right now, Whopper plopper, and you probably need to try it differently. Like a Whopper plopper, you need to have 2, 3, maybe even 4 different retrieves. Now what I've watched, and this even works for a popper too, because I've watched Charles and Emily, if you guys remember Emily from way back when, used to fish with us. She did it with the popper, and Charles works it the same way with the Whopper plopper. They don't like retrieve them by reeling. They do like a little pull with the rod, and with the Whopper plopper, just bloop, 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 like about a foot, and then stop it, and then reel up your slack, and then bloop, 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 bloop. And there's just sometimes that little subtle, you know, blurp, blurp, and then stop. Now me, I throw a Whopper plopper, I throw it out there, and I kind of go slow, and then I, you know, I'm kind of like I do with chatter. I kind of fish everything. I end up fishing everything with the same kind of little twitches a lot of times, and then I try to change from that. But there's sometimes, and the hardest thing for me to do is throw a bait out and just reel it back at a steady pace. But I'm telling you guys, sometimes that's what it takes. Throw it out. And I know everybody tells you to add a twitch, add it, but there's times for that, but there's also times where you just throw it out and then you reel back. Now, what you do is you change the speed. I start typically faster, no hits, throw it out, you know, go a little slower. But a lot of times you can just find a speed, even on a topwater bait that's just on the surface, that them bass just want it coming at them. And I just still couldn't explain it to you. The first fish I've ever realized that were doing me that way were crappie back in the day when I'd go crappie fishing. And I think that was a depth thing on where the jig, even if I was throwing it on a bobber, you know, your line's going to drag. So you throw out on 18 inches with the bobber, but then you had, and I was using spinning rails back then, they were already slow geared anyway, but then you just had to have this, like you could just tell when you, like, oh, I got it right there. And sure enough, like within 5 foot or something, bam, you'd have a crappie. If you threw it out there and reeled in faster, nothing. Reeled in too slow, nothing. You'd be like, oh, you could almost get in the, you know, mind to muscle memory thing to where you could tell the speed they would want it, and that would change. And I think on them it was just a depth, like that, you know, jig behind would be dragging that much further behind the bobber kind of deal is what that was. But I think bass can get into that funk also, and I call it, it's where the bite's not really that great, and if you find the right, and you've heard people talk about this before, that it's sometimes it's about the angle and it's about the speed, because typically a bass, and you can kind of use if the wind's blowing this way or if there's any current this way, the bass they tend to just face this way. And sometimes it maybe is the sun, like which way is the sun facing. You know, they will stage up and they're wanting the, kind of like if you're in a dark room looking into a light room kind of deal. So if you use that and you're seeing there's a stump or there's even a dock or something, so you try to set up to make the cast to where it's something that they think they can see and it can't see them. They're going to be facing that way and you stand a better chance to get a hit. But on a Whopper plopper, throw it out. Like for me, I feel it's good for open water and in tight, but not around brush. A Whopper plopper around laydowns is horrible. The big one anyway, 100%. Those big hooks, it never fails. I'd get a big hit by brush. By the time they grabbed it and ran down, they would have one of the hooks, the other hook would stick a tree and it would shake them off. And it's the worst part about that is I can only imagine how much it messed them up getting shook off like that, you know, a solid connection. So I try not to throw a Whopper plopper around brush because it can hang, and the best bait is actually a buzz bait when you're around a lot of heavier brushy type cover, real thick grass, just because a buzz bait is almost like a four-wheel drive, kind of like what a spinner bait is, also a better option than even a chatterbait. But a Whopper plopper along the edge of something like that, a little ways away or out in open water, is where I'd utilize the Whopper plopper. So for me, I pull up on, you know, a bank like this, I may be throwing a popper or something into little cutouts. And I'm throwing like a popper, something that's slower. Now, if all you have is a Whopper plopper, throw it up and almost work it like a popper. Just give it a little, like I was talking about Charles does, or you can do it yourself. Just give it a little nudge with the reel or the rod, but then just slow little pulses kind of thing. But then when you get parallel is the best way for Whopper plopper. And cast it about, I wouldn't say as far as you can, as far as you think you can with a comfortable, like you're not going to have a problem making a hook set. But before you cast that far, as you're coming into that bank, hit here, hit here, hit here. You know, hit a little bit of the bank. That way when you do make a long cast, if there's one here and you catch one down here, you don't want to spook the one that was here. So you want to hit those spots first as you're working up into a bank. And then once you start paralleling a bank, you know, just be out of however many feet and making longer casts, working down a bank with the Whopper plopper. That goes for chatterbaits, spinner baits, all that kind of stuff. Don't outcast your hook set on whatever bait is, because some of the bigger Whopper ploppers you can sling out there a long ways. And that was the only downside when I first started fishing a Whopper plopper, is what I felt anyway, or when I first started recording and fishing with the Whopper plopper. I'm like, man, some of those topwater hits are so far away you can't even see them with the GoPro, because I cast that thing way out there and get hit. And I'm like, oh man, I should have waited, worked my way down the bank further. But I'm just telling you, the Whopper plopper is an awesome Choppo. I've never even tried a Choppo. No, but what I have done, other than these baits work good. They're a little funky, but I tried Matt's. Matt has an actual Megabass one, and I feel it's kind of funky too. It's not like just cast it out and retrieve it. You kind of got to watch these. It's kind of like the mag draft. Like if you just throw it out and start reeling, if you go a little too fast, it'll be weird. If going too slow, it doesn't really get the tail kicking. These are kind of like you got to get your rhythm down. And so cast it out within your sight and figure out close to the retrieve or the twitching and how long it takes for it to slide before you go this way, and just little pulls changes direction. But once you get a rhythm down, and then I would recommend when if you're just going to buy one or two off AliExpress, is to go get these with a brighter top. You can see better further away and you can tell what they're doing. Like keep them high, get a rhythm going, then cast them out and let them sink down a little bit. And you just kind of got to get a feel with these baits. And they work pretty good. They'll catch fish. They're only $3.50, so you know, pick up one or two and see what you think of them. And I'll be interested to go out and throw this one and see what I think, how well this one compare. I'm sure it'll blow those away, but just give it a shot. What else was I talking about? Oh, the Chapo. Yeah, I've never tried the Chapo. 6-4 to 1, turn and burn to the point the one-way bearing skips. Chapo runs true, no spiral. Yeah, my Whopper plopper. That's what I think. Maybe it was you asking me if I run snaps on or swivels, barrel swivels, and I was like, no, because I was just out throwing it the other day, and I guess if I reel real fast far out, it may start twirling. That's on the little, the 90. My big one, I feel there was no. I've never had an issue with it, but I don't feel there's an issue with the little one. Of course, I do use braid, so if it does get a little bit of a line twist, like right at the end of the boat, you know, as it's coming to the boat, it doesn't seem to affect me at all. But the I'd still say the original Whopper plopper is there's just something about that little plopping noise it makes, or the knockoffs that are just like it. Now I haven't tried the Chapo. I know I don't know if the Chapo is the one with the dual blades or not. So like the one, the Bass Pro, and I think the Googans and some of them have like two blades, one up front, one at the back, and all that. But they're all similar. But I still have my original Whopper plopper, the big one. Then I've got a couple different little ones, and I tried a few different colors and sizes over the years. But I think the little 90, more of a subtle color, just if they're wanting something a little, you know, not as. Now I got a bright one, but I actually scraped wherever I put it. I scraped the belly off it, and I probably need to scrape more. I think it's just a little too much. So Rogers has the knockoff one, and that's a little 90 size basically. And it had the whole belly, it was this full-on chartreuse. So I did some scraping. I may need to take most of that off, and a lot of that, just leave a little hint, like if you were to dip it in just a touch of chartreuse. For me anyway, these smaller ones, I like to like more stealthy, just something bloop, 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 bloop. And you know, for those finicky, kind of jittery fish. But then I got the big green one, the full size one, if I feel like, you know, I want them to, they can't really miss it. It's not a real bright color, but it's so big and it's so loud. They see it, hear it, feel it coming kind of thing. I'll throw it. And then these are the little more, I can't remember. I got a couple different colors of that. I tried the fat one in white. Dude, that one, I caught some fish, but that one just seemed to be, it is not near as good as the little, just a 90. And I feel a touch more subtle color. I was just trying this bright color, but so far it hasn't kicked in yet. So like I said, I think I'm going to even take more chartreuse color off. Just leave a little hint of chartreuse. And then the bigger full size one, I don't even know if the color really matters on that. Once they see and hear that thing that big coming, they'll either decide if they want it or not. I've got just the green bluegill color one, I guess. I don't even know what they considered, what they originally called that one. Speaking of topwater, let me get that real quick. Because I don't really consider this a swim bait, but a lot of guys that throw swim baits also throw these weird things. Is this AliExpress rat we got? Little mouse rat. Now this thing's pretty light. I'll be able to throw, I could throw this on anything. But I bought that little dude. I have not even thrown that little guy yet. But there, if you guys can see it, is my original, back when they first came out, Whopper plopper. I need to probably take that off. I put that little tail just to try it. I probably need to take it off. But that little dude right there, and there's that big fat dude that sucks. I even tried painting different things. Here's the one I picked up. I don't think I've even thrown that one yet, to battle with Charles. But like, I like the lighter, more subtle, like in the small ones, like that color right there. See how it's just got a little chartreuse, kind of almost a clear. I've had good luck with it. And then this little bluish one that's all rusted. That thing's getting old. I've had pretty good luck with those over a lot of the others. And then, I don't even think I've thrown this guy yet. Little one knock. I do like the color, but I don't think I like the thing. And then we've got that crazy big dude that has caught me a couple fish. And then I've still got a few of my, I don't think I added any rattles in that dude. I need to break him back out and try. I think I'm going to change this dude out and give him chartreuse or whitish color legs. I don't like those green legs. So anyway, let's talk about rods, and I got to end this video. We're already 40 minutes in. I haven't even talked about what I really got the whole thing going for. Me and Brew Tank basically been talking about, you know, Megabass, P5, Expride, Poison Adrena. Oh my God, these rods are expensive. But so anyway, I went to Scheels and I did get to fill. They didn't have a bunch, but they had some of the Levante, the Orochis, and they did have. They had 4 P5 rods, but they were 2s and 2s. They had the X-Bite and a Dark Sleeper. Very light, good filling rods. If they were a touch short, I'd probably rather have them than my Super Destroyer. But that's all they had in those. But man, those rods feel like these. If you guys have not felt the P5 lineup, they are insanely light for the power they have. Like for their power rating and how light they are, you're like, in your head, you're like, there's no way they can be that powerful. But they are. They're strong rods. But another rod that is right there that I feel is better, in my opinion, this is just me like kind of bench testing them, right? Whether I'm up at Rogers Sporting Goods or Scheels or wherever. The Levantes I felt tonight and the Orochis are heavier and they look good. They've got a, the Levante looks okay. Not really my cup of tea with that black EVA on the handle, but it's a well look and feel, and the actions feel good, but it feels kind of heavy, and so does the Orochi. The Orochi's probably as good looking or better looking than the P5s. Like just looking at the the wrappings and just how it's put together, it looks a good looking rod. Feels heavier, does not feel good. This rod right here that I picked up, the X-Prides, this rod feels lighter, better, just it just feels like a better rod, and it's cheaper. It's $279. The Orochis are $350 or whatever. So anyway, I picked up, they had a 610 medium, and it's going to be hard for you guys to see that, but I picked up the 610 medium, and we're going to stick the Steez Limited on it. And yes, unlike the real test, hang on a second here. Whoa, look out. Hold the phones. So let's try this again. I know, I still have the mess from back. I am in the middle of making baits and switching out reel handles. And not doing any of it. I'm going to the gym and going out and eating crazy ice cream stuff and shopping, right? So I cut down these handles, and I'm thinking about, and if you guys comment if you want to watch, putting U40 cork seal, how do you do it? Make sure this stuff may be too old. I have to. It's really simple. You just put it on and let it kind of set, and if there's excess, wipe it off. It's not really like a what you're thinking of, a wood sealer, that's going to harden and be a nightmare. And it doesn't last forever. Like you put it on, it's basically just a clear goopy gunk that you put on that dries, and then it's clear, and so it'll help protect the cork, but it will fade, and you'll have to reapply it after so many years or whatever. But it's a simple process just to slap it on. It does change the overall look. It darkens it just a touch, and some argue it feels a little different, but there's only one way to even mess with cork, and that is you got to peel this plastic off. If any of you guys want to share this video with the real test, just to show him, because maybe he's scared to peel this plastic off. This is making me scared. Because sometimes this plastic can be a nightmare. Oh my God. Hang on. We're going to get it. So yeah, you're going to want to peel that. These aren't made to stay on forever. That's just so whoever's up there at the store handling it, versatile. Oh yeah, oh that feels already so good. So good. And I don't even know what one of these feels like with this the regular cork. That's one thing about the Poison Adrena was it doesn't have this on it. So these always felt slicker in the store because they have to have this plastic. So let me peel this off. Then one thing I always like to just get mine wet, and so I can just see how much cork filler and gunk they've added to some of these. If there's one downside to these rods, the Exprides and the P5s for that matter, that I think they actually kind of got right on the NRX Pluses, is they gave them more of a grip. These rods all have a touch on that small side. So yeah, look at that. Just peel it off like a banana. Right? Ain't that how you guys peel bananas, like that? Oh boy, we need to hire a maid. So yeah, oh boy, look at that. Wow. So you got, if you guys aren't familiar with these, I guess let me just show you. So you got this, what they call the Perfection Reel Seat or whatever, which that is exactly what they're putting on the NRX Pluses now. This part's filled in. It's smooth, it may be hollow inside, but they've got this covered up, and then it says something fancier there other than CF4, but they've got the soft touch, just like this. This part is cut out even more, a little bit, for the NRX Plus to give you more sensitivity, I guess. But the NRX Plus goes down it's a little bit thicker, goes down a little more, then flares out a little bit, so it just gives you a firmer feel. It's not really a huge deal, but they do feel good. Those NRX Plus rods are, and you can see all the filler, and it's almost on all rods nowadays, unless even the ones that say they're like double, triple, whatever, Portuguese cork, they still will not be the greatest. So this will eventually end up looking like this, probably, or close to it at some point. That's just kind of the nature of the beast with cork. So what I may do is clean these up and apply cork seal, or just slap it on just the way it is. But right there, that is going to be an awesome setup that is good for basically lighter stuff than what I feel like I want to throw with the Poison Adrena, the 611 Medium Plus. This is just a medium, but it's got that, and if you guys remember right, this is the one that Tactical Bass and Matt Allen talks about being his favorite jerkbait rod that he's found, right? And I have to agree just on the feeling of it, because if you guys remember right, I was using the contest rod, and then this Wizard rod is also kind of good, and the 611 Medium Plus is good. This is basically the same exact like tapers and action of the Poison Adrena Medium Plus on like a slightly like softer all the way around. So this rod should be awesome for basically all of the jerk baits, except for maybe anything bigger than, say, a Vision 110 plus 1. Then that Medium Plus should be the better option. If I get like the I can't even think of the name of them now, but like the plus 2 Vision 110s, there's a couple other Megabass and a couple other different brands if I want to run those. But this rod should also be very good for some of the other different I would think almost any square bill I have, this will probably be the best choice, except for maybe the biggest ones. Even the rattle traps, except for maybe the 3/4 ounce, but like the 1/2 ounce and even the smaller quarters or whatever. I probably will not try spinner baits with it because I think it's probably a little too soft for, honestly, this one, that smaller one, it would probably work just fine. So the contest rod, it is, and that's what I was going to talk about when I talk about the P5 lineup. The contest is a softer rod overall than this is. That, if you guys remember right, the quick, which is they consider medium light, which is close. It's kind of like a medium. It's in between. It's almost like a medium light plus, basically. But it is a touch softer than this medium. But it almost has the same familiar action, but not quite. The Poison Adrena and this, and I call it the Expride, the Poison Adrena, and even that the Megabass lineup has that same kind of, the tips aren't very fast. They got sort of a fast, but then they have like the backbone is on the verge of being parabolic. And that is what just makes them, I think, the more versatile setup, to where the contest, although it's a little lighter rod, it does go from a softer tip then to probably the same kind of backbone, or maybe even a little more than this X-Pride. The Wizard's the same way. The 6'8" and the 6'10" are more on the, and they're not really like extra fast, but they are fast and closer, on towards the side of extra fast than they would be onto just a regular. So you've got a little bit softer tip on the 6'8" Wizard than the 6'10" X-Pride. But then it jumps into this backbone that's stiffer, therefore it's probably better for setting a single hook jig, or bottom bouncing something, than what this X-Pride is. But this X-Pride is probably about as capable, but then it's got that extra little parabolic action to it. So they are slightly different, because that's what I noticed in the when I was up there tonight looking at the X-Bites. Is, I want to say it's 7'2", and Dark Sleeper 7'1". The Dark Sleeper is considered a softer rod by like a half power, I think, and the X-Bites is stiffer by a half power. But when you grab them and fill them, the X-Bites has the tip is like way softer. When you first feel that tip, you're like, this is no way this is more powerful than the Dark Sleeper. But then when you go in deeper down in the rod, it stiffens up a little quicker, and it definitely, you can tell it's a firmer filling rod. The first foot or so of the Dark Sleeper doesn't bend as fast, but it bends like the whole rod has a softer, more flowing feel. That's why I feel out of those two rods, the Dark Sleeper is the one that would be a more all-around rod out of the two. The X-Bites would be more prone for your, like what you consider jig and worm rod over an all-around rod. It's kind of hard how some of these guys and what they'll rate something and what it's considered for and what it actually does work for. And it can just depend on the person too, on how they fish, how they are with hook sets. But I feel that and then here, let me double check the Super Destroyer is just stiff all the way around, but it's kind of a more flowing from the tip to the backbone of the rod. it's not a fast, like, abrupt change to where it just, I don't know, it seems to work good for everything on like a heavier, you know, level. But I still say the Poison Adrena is still that medium plus. It just has that extra little. It's like not parabolic. It's not. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. How to describe it, but this Expride is almost the same feel, just on a lighter overall scale to it. So I think I'm definitely going to love this rod. And it'll be good for the fact that I've got a Poison Adrena, an Expride, and a Super Destroyer, you know, the Destroyer lineup. So we, you know, you guys will know my take on all those different ones. I've already had the NRX. I ain't gonna lie. If I could get in there and try all of the NRX rods, and oh yeah, just to show you guys, I've already added the little button. I need to clean those up. They came like where everything sticks to them. Like, I guess I had some sawdust around here from cutting these cork steel, and these little have that like static clingy thing, and it like has found all of that dust. I need to clean those up. But so it took roughly the same. I added, and I haven't even cut the, whoa, get out of there. I haven't even cut this off yet. Let's cut that off. What do you guys say? Let's cut that off. It's weighing my rod down. Oh my God, these cutters are so old. They don't even cut. That is, what is that, string? Or plastic? Oh, that's some kind of, that is like, that's braid. Where's my scissors? Hang on. There we go. Don't need that. So yeah, I added exactly 1 ounce plus whatever that little rubber butt thing weighs. So I don't even remember what these what the Steez Limited weighs, but you take the weight of that reel, add 1 ounce, and then whatever these Exprides weigh, and you've got a completely balanced to where when I'm holding it in hand, I can basically just move this finger. If it's there, it's almost butt heavy if I put my finger here, but then if I kind of just let that finger move down and the weight rest on my middle finger, then it just lets me, you know, kind of rock the rod back and forth. That's how I like to balance my combos. That's how I consider a combo is truly balanced. Now I know a lot of guys say, oh well, you know, that don't matter, it's not tip heavy if it just feels. Almost every rod you put a reel on it that's over 6'6" is like, and you can just feel the weight. And the bigger, longer, heavier, and just, I don't know, it's just something about, if I'm out fishing for a long period of time, which I typically am when I go fishing, I try to stay as long as I can. You know, day in and day out going fishing, if I just add, it could be even 5 ounces. If you just add some ounces to the back and get that balance feel in the whole time of the day, it just makes for a more enjoyable fishing experience to have a balanced rod and reel combo. I've tried it the other way. Now I have since gone away from, if you guys remember the whole single lifestyle, it's only been for like 5 years I was doing that. I'm kind of used to being back to this now, right? Double handles. It's not a big deal, but it took me a while, like, because I still would not have a problem with really, you know, if one of these broke off, no big deal. It's not going to kill me. But I am kind of back to that, but I'm still, you can't get me to just go out and buy a rod, throw a reel on it, and not balance it, because it just feels too weird. They all feel tip heavy unless it's a, like I mentioned, a 6'6" or shorter, like a BFS type deal. I've got a few of those that just kind of balance out naturally. But yeah, you can take, if I end up getting a swim bait rod, I'm going to balance that thing. If it's not, you know, if I do, like, I'll be honest, the rod that I looked at that I would have to fill in hand before I paid $500 for it was the daily rod from that Jared Swafford or whatever, the Leviathan rods. They're the North Fork Custom, right? Aren't they basically like the blanks that basically were developed by Gary Loomis, right? So that rod looks awesome, but I don't know if I would like it or not. They had, I don't even remember the name of it, but the Orochi up there in the 8-foot extra heavy, I believe. God, that thing felt like just too huge. 8-foot extra heavy. Easily could be balanced by me, but then you're at that weight with the 8-foot rod that is already pretty heavy. The rod that I'm just looking at, that I think I could throw any bigger swim bait that I would want to throw. I just don't know how forgiving that rod is the Tequila Baccarat, right? The P5 one. Like, I know that rod will throw them, and I want to say isn't it sort of a parabolic rod? But there's other options out there, I'm sure, of a not super long, but very powerful, yet sort of parabolic. And I know almost any of these bigger, like the one of the ones that pops to mind is one of these Lew's that was maybe like the 6XD or one of those, but then you're like, well, I won't stick a single hook. Because also what I'm thinking about doing is, if I get into bigger soft plastic baits where you would normally stick the owner beast hook in, like in a, like, I think I would want to just run stinger hooks in all my baits and run a softer, more parabolic rod. In my opinion, rig them up with some sort of stinger where the weight, or maybe utilize the line through. Because if everybody talks about how you got to winch them right in and get them in because of the weight, well, they'll throw the hook, which makes sense, but that takes all the fun out of it. And I'm not saying, yeah, with the big, you're like, oh, that's probably my personal best, let's get it to the boat fast as can. I'm talking about just to, you know, you catch a 4-pounder on this, or not necessarily this one, or one of those, you know, with a single hook. Like, I just don't want to horse every 4-pounder I catch in on a big monster rod. Like, if I'm going to do that, I'll just stick with the Adrena Medium Plus, throwing these dudes, and I'm still catching 4s and, you know, whatever. And if I want to switch my black and blue gold blade chatterbait, I only catch 6-pounders, right? All right, guys, I got to go. It's been, wait, what are you asking me? What are you guys asking me? Yeah, Bruce, yeah, you were the guy asking me about the swivels. Bassmaster's asking me, Shimano Aldebaran considers a BFS. The Aldebaran BFS? Yeah. They make an Aldebaran MGL, like the 30 from Japan. It can get down there in BFS type stuff. They make a 90, 75. The even though it's in smaller numbers because it's shorter, but it's a fatter one. He gave away the huge one. I think it's a 130. Is what the big one is. Gus says hello at 11:30. I don't even know what time it is now. Bruce says he has to seal 8 rod handles. Been too lazy. Loomis rods. Now, which ones are you talking about? Are you talking about The NRX rods, or are we talking about the new, all like graphite frames, handles, reel seat, all kind of looks black? The the NRX Plus rods actually look better, but I've had the ones I had in the past. I had the three NRXs. At when I had those, I didn't find them very nice looking rods. It's kind of like these Wizards. They look all right. The Wizards have like more like the Wizard look like the Conquest rods over the NRX rods. They've got a darker wrap. The NRX Plus, they do look better. They're just a better looking and feeling rod. They've incorporated more of the Shimano side into those rods, but they still have those funky recoil guides. And when I say funky, they definitely work. But when you start out with a guide or two that isn't a recoil and it's a certain color, and then you go to those recoil, it kind of looks like hodgepodge. It looks like something changed, or you just like a tip. Like a lot of these, you'll have if the tip doesn't match the rest of the eyes, I don't care if it's factory put on or not, a lot of times can look funky. And it's almost like if you're going to put recoils on, even develop the bigger recoils and stick with one color, or make your first however many the same material type look, maybe look better. But the ones I was looking at up there tonight, and I've looked at them at Rogers too, it's just something about that recoil look now. I think it takes away from those rods that could really look good. And honestly, they need to do away with that blue probably. I don't know who originally came up with that. Now it's just kind of known because that's what NRX looks like. But they were green, right? Then they went with blue, and then the Conquest actually has it's a darker blue, but it is a better look. But they would have been better off, and if they want to keep that blue, they should go to just a darker wrap, and then maybe give it one little streak of blue or something. I think would be better in my opinion. But I do love the handle, the reel seat, and all that. Now feels like it's money. They feel and the blank. So there's no arguing. The blank was good before, and it's probably a touch better now. I'd still argue the sensitivity. The ones I had, I don't know if you could say it's more sensitive than the P5's, more sensitive than even the Expride, which we'll find out once I start actually get this one out on the water. But that Poison Adrena is pretty sensitive. That P5, man, I don't know. I have not fished the Plus, but the NRXs I had, they were definitely sensitive, but I just don't know that I felt they were so sensitive that I could detect bites when I was, because I had the 803. Those of you that don't know which ones I had two 803 C's or whatever that just means they're casting, and then I had one 804, right? Yeah. Or I have 802s. I don't know. I had whatever the lightest one you could get. Maybe it was an 802. And then one 803. But maybe it was 802s. But the two that I had were this lightest. Those were awesome shaky head, like what I use the Teton and the feeling rod for now. And they were definitely awesome for that. And just like that Teton rod, or the Tula rod I had with the solid tip, I would almost say though that rod was one of the most sensitive rods I've ever had, because I had a Yum craw on the back of a jig, and I was swimming. I wasn't even really trying to swim it back, but I found that with that rod and braid, I could swim it back and feel those little bitty Yum craw trait. Like I could feel that coming through the rod. And that rod was crazy sensitive with that solid carbon tip. And the NRXs, they were sensitive, but I'd be hard argued to say that those, and that's maybe what they did with the NRX Plus. They knew they were getting beat by these P5s, probably the Stees, new AGS ones, and a few others out there on the market. So anyway, guys, I gotta get out here. I gotta get to bed. Hopefully tomorrow night I get all this whole area organized. I could actually go fishing. Tomorrow would be a perfect time to go fishing, but who knows? Maybe I'll slap everything. I mean, I've got the reel. The reel's already on the rod. All I gotta do is string the line out, tie it up, right? Probably won't be throwing any jerk baits, but we'll figure out what all we want to throw, can throw, what it'll handle. Definitely feels very good. Like, I feel that it's gonna feel as good as the Poison Adrena on smaller, like the different stuff I'll be using it for. It's definitely got a good, clean look. Goes very well with it. I don't know if it's going to be as lucky as that Poison Adrena. That rod's been real lucky, but that Super Destroyer has also kicked in and been awesome on spinnerbaits. I did not think I was going to really, that was going to be my rod that I just love throwing those spinnerbaits. Megabass knockoff SV3 spinnerbaits are like game on that rod. So anyway, guys, get out, go bass and bonsai. Whatever you do, make sure you have fun doing it. Get yourself some swim baits or not, or pick up this little 6 cents dude. That dude, 7/8 of an ounce, but yeah, you could throw that on a lot of different. Honestly, anything you throw a 3/4 ounce, like I throw, oh shoot, the Bougie hard knocker or the 1 knocker, 3/4 ounce rattle trap type lipless crank, chuck and wind. I'm thinking that is going to be about the same thing, just on a kind of a swim bait scale. And kind of makes me want to get the, and I've been looking at them, I just haven't ordered any yet, the, oh shoot, they got the knockoff on AliExpress of the Megabass bait that's like jointed, kind of like a rattle trap style. The name's eluding me at the moment. I've just watched somebody talking about them, but I may get a couple of those also, the knockoffs, just to try. So yeah, gotta go. Bye.